I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're uncovering the transformative power of relationships with a wonderful author. His name is Larry Dykstra, and he has penned a powerful book. It is called My Redemption from Pluto, Lessons Learned from Life's Relationships. Through engaging stories and 32 profound lessons, Larry explores how our connections with ourselves, others, the world, and the divine shape our lives. If you're seeking inspiration to live more intentionally and rediscover wonder, this is a conversation and a book that will leave you enriched. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Larry, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Well, thank you for having me, Logan. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you on the show. This is a great book. Provocative title, of course, My Redemption from Pluto. Why don't you explain first off what that means?
Okay, yeah, as you can tell, there's a couple key words in there that kind of raise questions about what this is about, and I'll start with Pluto. I had a very successful business career, and I'm proud of that and feel blessed with that. But the last year or so, I started to feel a bit devalued and had some responsibilities taken away. And it was around the same time Pluto kind of lost its title as a planet. And so, actually, the word of the year around then was being Plutoed, and that's kind of how I felt. And so I identified with Pluto. The position I was given or assignment at the end was to share learning, and we called it building know-how and a training job. And I realized a few years later that I really hadn't taken full advantage of that opportunity. I viewed it as kind of a demotion of sorts, and I missed that opportunity. And so, sharing these stories is really my way to try and find redemption, seek redemption for failing to take a hold of that responsibility and opportunity when I had it. So,
Well, you've given yourself a great opportunity now to share your life lessons and your knowledge and your wisdom by putting out this book. 32 lessons are contained within the book. Which one do you think is the most impactful?
for me, I do want to say one thing. The stories are meant because the lessons are and can come across as kind of obvious and trite, like there's something like slowing down. Obviously, you should do that, but I tried to use the narrative form and create stories that had inciting incidents that to kind of engage the reader in something that might be an obvious or trite lesson if they just read the lesson. The one that comes to mind that strikes me is, and I was a little worried to write it because my mom is still living at 99, and it's about a visit to the cafe in the small town near where I grew up. And it was full of the locals, and they would look at me and wonder who I was, but my father and mother were with me, so I was okay. But it happened, and there were only about 20 or 30 people in the restaurant, and antique sports car drove up in the front, and two people got out, strangers, and came into the restaurant. It was fascinating to watch because no one could keep their eyes off of them when they were outside the restaurant, but when they walked in, no one paid any attention to them. And it started to bother me about why are they not welcoming them? There's nothing dangerous about them. They were curious about them. And the net of it was, got me thinking about hospitality and where we learned that and how we learn it. And so I think it's one of the more engaging stories I wrote. Maybe it's because it was close to me, but I was feeling the sense of isolation that they were feeling because I didn't live there. So I went over and talked to them, and then everybody and the locals wanted to know what they said to me. But it's kind of interesting because everybody's a stranger until we meet them, even your best friend or your spouse. And so someone has to make the first move. And I just kind of, it just became a reflection on the need to kind of open our hearts and our lives to others. and show them hospitality because all faith traditions actually kind of expect that of us. So,
Yeah. Kind of fits in with your career as well. You had a career in consumer insights.
right.
So that must have influenced your perspective on relationships, right?
Yeah, because a lot of what that is, if you think of, there's lots of forms of data, and the idea is to try and get that to information, bring it into some order. But the real task is providing an insight, which is more like if that's what the data says, the information says, then what are we supposed to do about it? And so, in some ways, I've been thinking about a lot of what I did in this book was really applying the same kind of processes I did at work, kind of take the information I have, which a lot of these are just stories and memories, but how do I reflect on that and what meaning and what action do I take from that? And so there is a kind of fit there that I'm still trying to work through for myself to try and figure out exactly how my career helped me think through this book process. But
Yeah, absolutely. You focus on four key
right,
relationships, ourselves, others, the world, and the divine. I guess they're all kind of interconnected. You really can't have one without the
and
other. And one is not necessarily more important than the other.
right, and I had written probably about 15 or 20 chapters, and I was and one of the challenges for readers is these come from all different parts of my life and different roles, whether it be a child, an athlete, a boss, a mentor, and I needed some way to organize it. And I thought back to my experience serving as a chaplain in a children's hospital, and we had read this book, the Spiritual Child, and it talked about it was a childhood psychologist that interviewed children and found that um, they were able to consciously talk about their relationships, even if they hadn't been trained in religious language. And also, they talked about relationships. And I thought, well, if children have that kind of sense of their four relations, I'm in relationship with myself, with others, with the world, and with God, then we must all have that. And it became a way to start trying to structure this and get people to thinking about the diverse nature of relationships they have. Now, you're right. I mean, some of these chapters could be in a different section versus others, but I think it was a way to kind of enrich each of and give some structure to each of the 32 chapters, which is quite a few chapters. But
There a life lesson that you're sharing with the reader that you wish you had known earlier on in life?
is there one? Oh, probably one that took me a while is to probably uh, be happier. And your question kind of surprises me, but and my answer kind of surprises me too. But I was fairly serious at work, and I had a colleague who would tell me to lighten up, and I wish I would have taken that advice earlier because and I try and do that now. And actually, one of the things that stimulated that, I was driving down the road and I saw a bumper sticker that said something like "Wag more, bark less." And I'm not a pet owner, but I thought that was
Right.
really what. Not that I bark, but it was sort of like, why are you taking yourself so seriously? And so now I try and smile more, and smiling brings other smiles. And so I think that's one that I'm still learning, and I wish I would have realized earlier. Would have helped me in a lot of ways, I think, along the way.
I think you, like a lot of people, once they retire, are hit with some profound questions.
Yes,
Uh, Particularly, what's it all about?
right.
What has this journey been all about? Has it just been about making money? Has it just been about getting a nice house? Have you found some of the answers to those questions? And are you finding this chapter of your life where you're a little more cognizant of the bigger questions more impactful to you than your career?
To answer the last parts, definitely. As I see friends who retire, one of the things I say to them, if you think of it as a pie with the slices, most of your career is you've got family. Hopefully, you've spent enough time on that, and then career takes a lot, and maybe you have a few other little slices, but but retirement gives you an opportunity to develop other slices, explore other slices. I put together something every year, which I look at, and it kind of divides my life into the spiritual part, the creative part, the service part, the part, and just try and think about what are the things I'm going to do there that kind of feed those broader set of opportunities. The other thing I'd say is, um, and I think that's in one of the chapters about exploring new worlds. I tell people, try things out. You get an opportunity to try new things that you might not have thought about doing before and see how it feels for you, see how others react to you in that role. And and just explore that because you will learn about life and the world, and you'll learn a lot about yourself if you test yourself in new ways.
That's great advice, without a doubt. Your book, you talk about rediscovering wonder. Um, that's harder to do as you get older and older because you've seen a lot.
Yes.
The first time you see the ocean, you're in awe. But how do you rediscover that sense of wonder and awe?
Well, my answer is hanging out with children. I have children of my own, and that's kind of the example. I love them. I have grandchildren. But I realized that I do volunteer a lot with children, some in children's hospitals, but some at the church I attend. And just watching them and letting them lead and see how they don't accept some of the assumptions that we make and their curiosity. I think I write about children. If you go out in public in a mall and you see children walking with parents, the parents are headed somewhere and the children will be stopping and wanting to look and point
Yeah,
at this and point at that.
yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the lesson. Let them take the lead. And we're really good at focusing on things, but they're taking in information all over the place and wondering about it. And I think that's partly my answer to how to do it. So
I
I
think it's
try
a
and,
right answer, actually. In fact, I was walking in Walmart the other day, picking up Christmas decorations. I passed through the toy aisle, and I was like, gosh, I wish I was shopping for children this year. Because that's when Christmas was really fun, when I was getting that toy for my son to
yeah.
watch him open it on Christmas morning. And like you said, it wasn't my wonder, but the joy of watching his wonder that was so wonderful. What do you hope readers take away from your book?
I hope they take away, well, first of all, I hope they find, if not each lesson, the specific lessons to be meaningful to them, to help them reflect upon their own lives. Actually, that's one of the interesting things I've learned so far is I thought of the target audience as more younger adults that maybe want to learn from someone that's, older with gray hair and has been through some life experiences. And what I've found from friends and colleagues who read it, kind of a reaction, sort of like, wow, it got me thinking about my life
Hmm.
and about my experiences, whether they're, and my relationships. And so my hope is that it will lead them to consider the richness of their own lives and using the four relationships is kind of a way to just get into that because thinking about your life is a pretty daunting kind of task. But if you think about it, it's like, well, what have I learned about myself throughout the years, whether that's some incident or from others, and what have I learned about the world I live in? And so I think it's a framework, and my hope is people will readers will be encouraged to maybe write their own stories, share their own stories in the same manner, because we're each individual and we're each like a made up of our experiences, and they're all unique to us. And so I think
Yeah.
that's my hope.
Well, I think you've done a great job with this book in getting people to think, to get them to ponder, to get them to wonder, and to get them to evaluate where they've been, where they are, where they're going. Three questions that we have to look at all the time when we're looking at the journey of our lives.
Right.
The name of the book is My Redemption from Pluto: Lessons Learned from Life's Relationships. Through engaging stories and 32 profound lessons, the author explores how our connections with ourselves, with others, with the world, and with the divine shape our lives. Now, Larry, you've included a special blessing that you want to share with us and our viewers today. Tell us about that.
Yeah, as I wrote, there's a concluding chapter that tries to summarize what I learned about the relationships, and it was around language of being engaged and bestowing, caring about others, and being present in the present, and beholding God's presence. So I wrote a blessing. It's not in the book, but I'd like to share it with you and the viewers, Logan, just as my wish. So. May you always be engaged in what you are doing in the present moment. May you go out and bestow your welcoming presence, your gift of caring and kindness to the next person you see. May you always be here to slow down and take notice of the world of wonder around you. May you behold God's holy presence so that it can challenge and enrich what you have been taught to believe. And may each day take you further on your journey to becoming the one and only you. So,
Wonderful.
blessings to you.
Blessings to you as well. Beautiful sentiments, beautiful thoughts, and almost a prayer. And I love it.
Yeah.
Larry, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan.
I
You have a great
appreciate your
day.
time, your wit, your wisdom, and your insight. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.